And we are live. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to A Bookish Moment. I'm Sarah Burr.
And I am J.C. Kenny, and we have a wonderful special guest for you all this afternoon. So, Sarah, I think it's time to get bookish.
Let's get bookish with a very good friend of our bookish enterprise. Marilyn Levinson is joining us today. Marilyn's been on our show a few times chatting about her cozy mysteries, but today we're going to kind of pull back the curtain on everything that she has going on in her writing world. Marilyn, welcome back to the show.
Oh, it's my pleasure to be back here. It's so nice to see you both.
It's great to have you. And as I had mentioned, you have got a busy year ahead of you. I'm wondering if you can, just to kind of set the stage for our viewers who are joining us today, tell us what books you have in the pipeline. What is on your publishing calendar for this year?
Well, okay, to start with, I am dealing with 4 publishers. And
that's a lot.
Yowza.
Okay, in this year, I'm having 8 books coming out.
Holy smokes.
Yes, well, 5 of them are republishing. They're being republished. And 1 short story. And I'm really very happy about this because I was asked to do this. Yes, and I think short stories are very important. But first of all, because this is so dear to my heart, well, like all my books are dear to my heart, but I have written the 8th book of my Haunted Library series, which I write is Alison Brooke, and that will be out August 6th. And it does have a happy ending. Yay. But there's a lot that goes on before this happy ending comes about. And I'm happy about the way the book turned out, and I love the cover. So that's the end of that. And before I go into the other books, writing wise, I'm starting a new series, and I have a contract for the first book. It's called the Dickens Island series. I placed an island in the middle of Long Island Sound, and you won't find it on any map. And I'm doing research on it. It's like, I borrow from the other islands nearby. And I'm also, I have another book, a children's book due in my Rufus series. So I will talk a bit about, I had written this book a while ago, Rufus, many, many years ago, Rufus and Magic Run Amok. This is one of my children's books. I started out writing children's books, and this was a children's choice. And I have gotten since then, it came out last year, and the second of 4 books will be out this year. So that's one of my children's books that's coming out. And then I just recently, my YA horror, my only horror ever, but it has a happy ending, but a lot of really horrible things that you would not allow in a cozy book, which so I won't even mention it, go on in this horror book, but it does have a happy ending. And that's called The Devil's Pawn, and that just came out.
So, Marilyn, could I just interrupt you real quick? So for both the books you just mentioned, what are you writing those under? Are you writing those as Marilyn Levinson? Or,
yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
I made the decision when I started writing mysteries. I started writing children's books first, that I wasn't changing my name. This was my name, and this was my brand. We didn't have brands in those days.
I like your use of it, though.
But when I started writing for Crooked Lane, I became Alison Brooke, and I am still Alison Brooke for the Dickens Island series, which is fine because I think most people know that I am one of the same. And then this was really exciting because Kelly Moran and 3 other women started a brand new boutique publishing house, and she asked me for books, and she took the very first novel, a romantic suspense I ever wrote, And even though I went over it many times, I have edits to go over, and I'm making it better and stronger with her suggestions, and that's coming out in April. And she's bringing out. Took back a lot of books from one house because they had split and everything. In fact, she wanted more books. I said, "That's it for this year." I mean,
Yeah.
I am. It's a lot, even if you were
Yeah.
younger. And then she's bringing out another edition of, and these are favorite books of mine, Murder a la Christie, which really got a lot of good attention, and Murder the Tayway, because my sleuth gets to discuss these books while she's solving murder mysteries. Books by by Agatha Christie, and then in the second book, Josephine Tey, and those books don't need much attention. In fact, she had somebody else, Dawn, had arranged to have the audio done. So Murder La Christie is it now out in audio, and it will soon be out,
Nice.
hopefully in Murder the Tayway. Then two of my children's books that had been with another publisher will be coming out in September. Again, they won't need much attention, but they're being reissued. And this is the very first book I ever wrote, called And Don't Bring Jeremy. And then and the second book is called Getting Back to Normal. These are novels for children. And that is it.
Well,
So is that
all? Yeah, like that seems like more than enough to keep track of. But Marilyn, what I have to ask, as you've been describing your books, and you're spanning a wide variety of age groups that you are creating, creating these stories for. I am trying to figure out in my head how someone who writes murder mysteries also has the ability to connect with and present stories for children. So tell us how you straddle all of these different genres and voices that you have going on.
Well, okay, when I started writing when my children were very, very young. I started writing short stories, and then I was working. I had a wonderful friend called Roberta Gellis, and she was a wonderful writer. She wrote in every genre, and I really learned writing through her, through osmosis practically. And I had written this story, and maybe it was because my kids were very young, but she said, "Marilyn, you have a good voice for children." She said, "I could never do it." So I started writing. Maybe it was because I had children. I started writing books for children. And I think all you do is you remember when you were a child, or if you have children, or if you can look around, you have niece or nephews or neighbors, you can see what they're doing, or you have to just get into their head, just like we do it with a mystery, with a murderer, with a sleuth. So it's really and to think about, most of my my protagonists were boys, and I had two sons. So you can think, well, I was a girl, but it doesn't matter. We are different people and different ages. You can remember what you were like when you were 25, and you can write about that. Of course, times are different, but the emotions are still there, I think. So I think I think that's something we can do, is jump around. We have to. I mean, our characters are not all one age, right? So,
and that right there, that kind of begs a question in my mind, is as you're moving from one genre to another, or from one age group to another, do you have to go through any sort of process to kind of mentally kind of reset your brain, that it's like, okay, now I'm moving over to this? Or have you just done this enough that it's like, okay, I've got this?
Yeah, I think I just do it. And I'll tell you something, Jim, I have never worried about vocabulary. they say, oh, words and this and that. I mean, I try not to use 5-syllable words, but if I'm in Rufus's head, he's in the 5th grade. And I mean, I just, my granddaughter's in the 5th grade. I mean, I don't, I just don't have a problem. You just think of yourself as being in the 5th grade,
Mhm.
and then you just start writing. And then, of course, um, I, like you, Sarah, I love including a paranormal element
Hmm.
in many of my books. And Rufus, and I wrote this even before Harry Potter, Rufus finds out he's a witch, but he
Nice.
doesn't. Yeah, he doesn't want to tell his mother or grandmother or aunt because they're all witches and they're going to make him take lessons, and he doesn't want to learn. It's gonna. He has to do good. You're supposed to use your powers to do good, and of course, he's a good kid, but he wants to have fun. And so, in the very first book, um, he's always being bullied, and he deals with the bully, but not with he doesn't resolve the problem with his magic. And he's a very kind boy. He has his little hang-ups. He gets nervous about doing anything new. And each book, goes into some element of human nature, and I just have fun writing it. Um, but it's not, and it is different, but in a way, it's not different from writing a mystery because, I'm just writing a story
Hmm.
that, I'm exploring his growth, his personality, and how the magic impacts good and bad and what he does with it. So, and then I guess I don't know that I've never seen a ghost, but somehow I have included ghosts in books for quite some time now. Not just recently, but before the Haunted Library. And I think it's my tribute to ghosts. I think they really are there. They really exist, and I think that's what it is. And I just find it adds an element to my books. Everyone's books are different.
I heartedly agree that I love the paranormal element, and especially the sense of ghosts. I've always, I can't prove that they exist, but like, how could they not? How could there not be something more after what we go through in life? And so I think that a tribute to that is really fun and exciting. And you mentioned that with Rufus's story, you have fun writing it, and it sounds like you're able to find those levels of fun through everything that you're writing, because once you're not enjoying what you're working on, like, what's the point? So I want to talk about, you mentioned that you were going back and revisiting one of your very first books that you ever wrote and kind of building on it and making it better through edits and receiving feedback. Can you share a little bit, Marilyn, about like, what is it like to revisit a piece after, a certain point of time? Like, what are the emotions and connections that you're having with the manuscript?
Well, I wrote this book so many years ago, and it came to me in a dream where this girl is being chased. We were at Montauk, and the place was just a block or two away from the beach. Not, and in the dream, these two men are chasing this young woman. And the book starts where this young woman is 25. She's almost 25. Um, and she's living in upstate New York, and renting an apartment upstairs in a house. And she's waiting for her husband to return. And these two men, she comes to the back, and her landlady tells her these two men have been looking for her, and they really want to look for her husband. So she goes off, and they follow her and they chase her, and they start talking to her in a local place that she used to go, like a coffee shop.
Mhm.
And she finds out from these two men that they're they're like hoodlums, and that her husband, who goes on she's newly married, She's gone. They're gone on. He's gone. He goes away. Always says it's business, and she never really questions him. He gets annoyed, and they tell her that her husband owes their boss a lot of money. Okay, so I was making that one of the two men, the love interest, and what one of the problems was, here she is, falling for someone having. There's a whole story about the marriage, which I won't go into now, but here she is. She's let herself to be deceived by not and having questions answered, and she can fall right away for someone who is definitely, another. He's a gang. He's a criminal. So it was. Kelly suggested to me that somebody appear after she has this incident with the two men. They want money, what she should do, and to tell her husband, etc. That somebody come shortly after and say he's her husband Terry's friend. And he's very kind to her, and she appreciates him. And then she goes home. This is the home that she left on Long Island 3 years ago and swore she'd never return to. So I had to make all these changes to bring Doug. She finds out eventually that he's involved in this group. I mean, how does he know these men? He knows them by name. And, not to make her look too foolish, but everything else pretty much. But it's interesting how we develop as a writer. Like the last book that I handed in to my editor, I mean, hardly any changes, anything. And I don't show it to anyone. And it just shows how we grow as writers, it's just very interesting that, there was nothing really wrong with the book, but everything that Kelly suggested was valid and had to be attended to. And what's so amazing, and I find this because I'm in a little group, we always find a way to resolve our writing problems. I don't know how we do it, right? Isn't that, you could swear that you're not going to. How am I going to get around this? And you may even ask a friend, and you may take their advice, or it may trigger something in your own mind too, right? Isn't it amazing? Agree. Think about how many problems we solve.
I have a writer friend who will go nameless, who posted late last week that she was about 20,000 words short of her word count. And she was kind of freaking out a little bit about it. But she thought about it. She kind of set things aside, and she posted later that she got it figured out, and it was all going to come together just the way she wanted it. And, congratulations to that young woman who is a fabulous writer. And I had no doubt when she was freaking out that things were going to work out.
Was that me? I was like, this feels like this is a familiar story.
Well, maybe.
But I've had that moment happen to me like several times over the past week. Because Marilyn, to your point, like these problems that we get ourselves in, and we think like, how the heck are we going to figure this out? And then it comes down to like, you have to put one sentence in. That's my favorite, when it's like all of these issues can be resolved by the addition of one sentence. And it's like how those, that collection of words can like come together and resolve so many things.
And don't think, Jim, that you didn't play an important part. We are so supportive of each other. Because we know what each other is going through. We know other people don't really as well. I'm in a little group that, nobody reads my stuff, but when I have a problem, it could be a usage of a word. It could be a situation. And all of us, and we help each other. It could be a title, could be a problem with your pet. Whatever. No, very often it's that. But sometimes we all have said, just by you start writing the question, I can, what do you, and sometimes it just gets resolved by it's something gets started. Also, two of my friends in that group, the three of us, we report at the end of the day. It could be nothing. I wrote nothing today, or I just baked a cake, or it doesn't matter. We don't feel, we're not in competition, but somehow it just, or very often it'll be, I have this problem, I didn't what, or my friends will say, I brought in another character. We all have different ways of working, but just, I don't know, something about this parallel sharing is just it does its magic.
I agree that there's the power of the community is so important, and to anyone that is looking to develop their writing or to throw themselves into the trenches of beginning queries, or just even like starting their very first manuscript, finding that community is going to be a real lifeline for those moments when you're really, really struggling.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's why something like a group like the Guppies, which I still belong to, is so wonderful, because people can exchange manuscripts. They throw out questions. And very often, this is where you make your friendships. We all know each other because we had the same agent. We know people, through different ways, different social media, different whatever, and you may never see this person in real life, but it's very important, right? Mm-hmm. It really is a very, very important connection. And I think the writing mystery community is just so loving and supportive. We support each other, so I think that's important.
It's a great group of people.
Absolutely.
And for folks who may not be familiar with the Guppies group, Marilyn, that's the Sisters in Crime Guppies, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
And many of us stay in it. In fact, that was Sisters in Crime. They asked for mentors, and I thought, oh yes, that's just what I need. But they said, if you could just give an hour 1 month or something. So I said I would do it. I believe in paying it forward. And there are some people who do call me, and friends of ours, mm-hmm. who, I'm happy to share whatever I can with them.
And speaking of which, Marilyn, one of the things you commented earlier on really is resonating with me, talking about how your characters, regardless of genre, regardless of age group, it all comes down to the decisions that they make. That we are, outside forces or outside things don't necessarily define us. It's those decisions. Could you? And I think that's really powerful and really important to remind folks that, whether we're writing or we want to write or just live, it's our decisions have. We may not have a lot of choices or power in life, but we do have the ability to make our own decisions.
I agree with you, and I think that's why I ended the Haunted Library series, which I did with this 8th book, because I felt that the story arc was complete. And I'm very proud of Carrie. I see how far she's come. She's kind of a very lost person. She goes from, spends some time in one town, another, and then she comes to where his family had a farm, and she ends up working in the library. And in each book, you can see how she grows, and and she becomes an important member of the community. And I like to see that, but it's the same thing in my children's books. I see how in each book, Rufus, how he grows. In the second book that's going to come out soon, it takes place in the south of France, and he's there with his friend's family, and he likes this girl. Her parents own the villa where they're staying, and he doesn't want Billy to tell her. She's going to think he's weird. And he and Billy are on the beach, and they see this old woman and who looks like a witch, and a little girl. And the name of the book is The Witch's Drudge. And what it is the little girl is a very powerful, soon to be witch. And the older woman, who's a distant relative, is draining her because the little girl has been taught to be ashamed of having magical powers. And it's how Billy, Rufus and Billy and Danielle, when she comes to the, and she spends the week with them at the villa, how they help this little girl, Violette, to get out of the witch's clutches and regain some of her, not be ashamed of this heritage that she has. That's because she's been taught to be ashamed of it. And then you could look at having powers as, we all have powers, and sometimes we're ashamed of things because we're different. Oh, you're left-handed. Oh, you're whatever it is. We're all different in different ways, and sometimes you feel, and that's in a way in that book, what it feels like to be different. So it's really you're really talking about a lot of things when you're and the other thing about children's books is you don't have adults solve the problem, just like you don't have the paranormal element resolve an issue. You don't have parents solve the problem for the children solve the problem.
And I think something that you touched on, Marilyn, in both instances, talking about how your characters grow, they kind of start off being, a little afraid or uncomfortable, but then they settle into this community that they're a part of, and they're reaching out and they're helping people and showing that importance of being involved in the world around you and not solely thinking about, what are my problems that I have to deal with, but, how can I contribute and help the greater good? And I think that's a really valuable message, especially in our world today, that folks sometimes probably need some reminding of. And we have one of our viewers, Marilyn Mizan, writing in the chat saying that she'll miss the Haunted Library series, but she's very glad to know that it has a happy ending and is very excited for what's next for you. So
yes. Thank you so much.
So that'll be and it'll be, I imagine, very bittersweet for all of your readers, myself included, to see how Carrie's journey resolves itself. And because our bookish moment is running short, I'm wondering if you could just give us really quickly, Marilyn, a quick rundown of any other online events that you have going on. We know that we've got Haunted Library Mystery coming. You said August, correct?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Oh, you mean when my books are coming out?
No, just like any places that, any online events that you're going to be participating in, so that if our folks who are watching want to kind of follow you around and see what's happening.
Oh, I don't remember. I do have some author takeovers coming up, and I sometimes I forget what I'm doing. But if people want to sign up for my newsletter, that would be the easiest way. And it's www.marilynlevinson.com. So that's easy enough. And you could get my monthly newsletter. And when Facebook is working, I'm up there. I mean, that was scary.
It was.
They kept asking me for a new password, and I kept giving it to them. And I thought, oh, they said you tried enough. Goodbye. Virtually. So it's everyone's experiencing this.
Everyone's experience. And JC, I don't know about you, but I just thought to our guest that we had last week, Paula, she had her Facebook hacked and had to restart everything. And I was just thinking, it's like, oh my gosh, that's what's happening here. But then of course you bounce over to Twitter and everyone's saying, oh, Facebook's down. And it's just like, this world that we live in is rather odd.
I know.
Which is a perfect reminder to both authors out there and readers. Newsletters are probably, at the end of the day, the best ways for us all to keep in touch with each other, because we as authors have the control over those. We send those out, and readers, that's the way you get in touch with us directly.
I was thinking that very thing. I still have my newsletter, but I had trouble getting on Wix yesterday. But I did it. I got back. I was so proud of myself. And then today I was not proud. And yesterday I resolved 3 major issues, and then this happened. But you see, that's the community. I wrote
Mhm.
to my little group, help, how do I get back on Facebook? And then I was told, everyone's having that problem.
Mm.
It's not you.
And it was a nice reminder to be like, you know what? I'm going to step away from my computer and I'm going to go work on my writing, or I'm going to go sit and read a book. And it was actually like it was almost very like cathartic to be able to just like, you know what? I'm going to step back and let the world like iron itself out and see how things pan out.
As long as it comes back.
Yes.
Yes.
But if it doesn't, if people know that they can always see folks here with us on a Bookish Moment or the Bookish Hour. And Marilyn, as always, it's wonderful having you on the show to chat about what's going on. I hope once the date draws closer for the release of, for each book that you have coming out, that you can stop by and chat and tell us, you can dive a little bit deeper.
April 30th is when Come Home to Death is out.
Okay.
And I really like that. I really like that book. It's a romantic suspense, which is really nice, and a little different from my other books. But I don't like to write the same book ever again. And again, it's amazing that we can keep writing different books. It's just amazing. So thank you so much for having me. I love to come here and chat with you guys.
Well, it's
and
always
especially
great.
Yeah, especially since I won't be at Malice.
Yes, that's unfortunate that we won't get to see you, but you'll be. We'll definitely be thinking about you as you're walking those wide halls and trying to figure out where we're supposed to be going.
Walking back and forth. Yeah, getting your exercise in.
Yes. Get those steps. Well, again, Marilyn, thank you very much for being here. For our folks who joined us live for our broadcast this afternoon, it's always wonderful to get bookish with you and to be here as we celebrate all of the projects that Marilyn Levinson has up for 2024. So again, Marilyn, thank you for being here. And to our folks, we will see you next week for another episode of the Bookish Hour. And until then, stay bookish, everybody. Bye-bye. Have a great afternoon.
Bye.
Bye.